We now come to Season 7, Episode 10, Phantom Apprentice. This episode continues with the Siege of Mandalore, but has enough links to Avengers of the Sith to make it more enjoyable than it just being as a single episode. However, I didn't enjoy this episode as much as the last one, but I still consider it to be a good episode nonetheless. So what happens? Maul is in a face-off with Ahsoka, but ends up fleeing when Rex and the other clones arrive. After a mission briefing with Obi-Wan, Ahsoka and Rex find out that Maul has taken Jesse captive, and Maul then uses the Force to find out about Order 66. And after using the Mandalorians to cause a distraction, leaving Ahsoka and Maul alone, he tries to explain the planet that Sidious has in motion, and has had in motion since the start of the Clone Wars. Ahsoka not believing Maul, they end up in a lightsaber fight, and Mandalore ends up under Republic control and Maul gets captured. Now, the first thing I noticed, which was something I wanted to point out, which is something I mentioned in the previous review, the intro sequence changed. Now, I mentioned that review from last week that I didn't like it but I would have been more accepting of it if they kept that type of intro sequence consistent with the episodes following it. But it wasn't. It was different, and that's what I don't like. If they kept it the same or similar, I would have accepted it more, but they didn't. However, this is just really my only complaint about this episode. Yes, there were some things that didn't really make sense, so I'll get onto those a bit later, but in the grand scheme of things, they really don't matter. Another thing I noticed as well is that it carried on directly from where the last episode left off. Now, I like this, but I get the feeling that they're trying to make this like a movie and split it into parts, which is something I'm not too sure whether I like. Something I did like is when Obi-Wan was talking to Ahsoka and Rex, he mentioned that Anakin had killed Count Dooku, which was their only lead to finding out who Darth Sidious was, and that's why Ahsoka needs to capture them all. After thinking about this more, I noticed that this plays into Palpatine's plan all along. I know he wanted Dooku dead, so that's why he could take Anakin as his apprentice, but I do wonder what would have happened if Dooku had survived, and where the galaxy would have been. Now, something I did notice in this scene is why Obi-Wan was slightly disappointed that Anakin had killed Count Dooku, yet in the movie he was very pleased with him about what he had done. On top of Obi-Wan's briefing with Ahsoka and Rex, I do like how they're tying in with the movies, but not massively, but just with little references such as Anakin killing Dooku and then being able to spy on the Chancellor, as well as Obi-Wan mentioned that he's going to chase Grievous across the Utapau. It's little nods like this, which is just like there to establish whereabouts in time we actually are, which I'm very grateful for. Now, more in this episode is a completely different ballgame. I cannot describe how much I love seeing Maul in this episode and how good he is. He starts off with the basic knowledge of Order 66, and as he was once Palpatine's apprentice, and so just most probably told the basics. I also like this because it shows how far back Palpatine's plans went, and how long he was planning, and that Darth Plagueis was also most probably part of this plan before he was killed. But Maul realising that something is going on, and then takes Jesse captive and then finds out all about Order 66, and then tries to convince Ahsoka to join him to stop Sidious together. On top of this, you see Maul say in the last episode that he was hoping for Kenobi. Now, you automatically think that this is because he wants revenge on him. But when you see this episode and how it turns out, it actually wants to talk to Obi-Wan and Anakin in hopes of saving them in a sense from Order 66, and then talking to them all about Sidious in hopes of working together to bring him down as revenge for Sidious killing his brother Savage. This is the type of good writer that I love in Star Wars and in Clone Wars and Star Wars in general. That makes you think about them and then surprises you with something different, but it's something that's not entirely unbelievable. I do also want to say that the battle between the clones and the Mandos, as well as Maul and Ahsoka, looks really cool as well. There wasn't really much going on or anything interesting going on. However, I'm a sucker for a good action sequence, and since we had a deep story anyway, I can let this sequence go without having much interesting stuff going on in it. So overall, I really did enjoy this episode. The story was well written and it tied in with the movies and had a good action sequence as well. I'm very much looking forward to see what we get in the next episode.